If you love stories of overcoming revenge and twists and turns that life brings, then this channel is for you. Here, each story will keep you hooked from beginning to end. So subscribe now, activate the bell, leave your like, and come with me. Because today's story is simply unmissable. Isadora has always believed in love. For her, love was like breathing, necessary, vital, non-negotiable. She grew up hearing that those who love endure, that those who love do not give up, do not betray, do not abandon. And it was with this conviction that she gave her life, her dreams, and her heart to Raphael. A man who, in everyone's eyes, seemed perfect, educated, kind, smiling, a true prince. But what Isadora did not know is that not every prince is the hero of the story. Some are in fact villains in disguise, ready to destroy that which they pretend to protect. They met in college. Raphael was the kind of man who dominated any room, charismatic, intelligent, and extremely seductive. At first, everything seemed like a fairy tale. He made a point of showing love in every detail, flowers for no reason, unexpected messages, and romantic dinners that made Isadora feel like the most loved woman in the world. And she believed him. She believed him so much that she ignored the first signs, the little lies, the unexplained disappearances, and that look that, at times, seemed to carry secrets she never imagined discovering. Time passed, and the promises multiplied. Raphael talked about marriage, children, a lifetime together. And Isadora dove headfirst. She gave up job opportunities, distanced herself from friends who tried to warn her, and without realizing it, made Raphael the center of her universe. She believed that by doing this, she was building a solid future, an unshakable foundation. Little did she know that this foundation was made of quicksand. One night, while preparing a special dinner to celebrate another anniversary, Isadora noticed that Raphael was acting strangely. He was cold and distant, constantly checking his phone, looking away whenever she tried to start a conversation. Her heart sank, but as always, she tried to convince herself that it was just work stress. Until, by accident, she saw a notification light up on his screen. "I love you, my love. I can't wait to see you today." The message wasn't from her. For a few seconds, Isadora's world stopped. The sound of the pot boiling, the smell of food, everything seemed to disappear. She stood, paralyzed, staring at the screen, as if it were a scene from a nightmare she needed to wake up from. But it wasn't. It was real. Raphael, the man she loved more than herself, was cheating on her. And it wasn't just a fling. The message made it clear that there was love involved, at least on the other side. With a trembling voice, she asked, almost whispering, "Raphael, who is she?" His silence was more devastating than any words. Without even trying to deny it, he put his cell phone on the table and simply said, with the coldness of someone talking about time, "I don't love you anymore, Isadora. In fact, I haven't loved you for a long time. I stayed because it was convenient, comfortable, but now I've chosen to be happy, and it's not with you." Those words tore Isadora's soul apart. She felt the ground disappear beneath her feet, as if she were falling into an endless abyss. Everything she believed in, everything she had built, turned to dust in a matter of seconds. Raphael, the man she swore to love until the end of her days, was there, looking into her eyes, destroying everything without shedding a single tear, without showing an ounce of regret. He stood up, grabbed his car keys, and before leaving, said the sentence that would seal the biggest trauma of her life. "You're good, Isadora, but too good. And that gets tiring. I need someone more. Fun." The sound of the door slamming echoed in the apartment like a death sentence to all the dreams she had ever dreamed. In the days that followed, Isadora ceased to exist. At least the version of her that believed in love, loyalty, and promises. She locked herself in her room, ignored calls, messages, and most importantly, ignored her own hunger, thirst, and need to live. She spent hours staring at the ceiling, trying to understand where she went wrong. After all, she had given everything: love, affection, support. She had annulled herself in the name of a love that, she now realized, only existed for her. But the world doesn't stop to wait for anyone to get back on their feet, and it was there, in the midst of mourning, that she discovered an even crueler betrayal. While browsing social media, she found photos, yes, public photos of Raphael with his lover. Smiles, trips, declarations. They weren't just starting something, they were already living a parallel life, while she, innocently, believed she had a perfect relationship. The pain turned into anger, an anger that burned like fire, destroying every piece of that submissive and naive woman that Isadora had been. For the first time, she realized that she could no longer allow herself to be a victim of this story. She stood up, looked at herself in the mirror, and although what she saw was a devastated woman, there was something new in her eyes: determination. The next morning, she did something she had never done before. She called her old boss. "I want my job back. In fact, I want something better. I want to prove that I am more than someone who is fit to be discarded." And so began the rebirth of Isadora, a woman who, until that moment, had no idea of the strength she carried within herself. But it wasn't easy. Returning to the job market after years dedicated to a relationship was a daily battle. The insecurities, the judgmental looks, the internal pressures, everything seemed to want to push her back to that dark place she had come from. But there was a difference now. Isadora was no longer willing to bow down to life. She began to study, train, take courses, stay up all night, and little by little, she began to gain ground again. Her name began to circulate in the corporate world. Doors that had previously been closed began to open. And along with this professional rise, she realized that she also needed to take care of what she had neglected the most: herself. Isadora began to look at herself with more affection. She changed her look, went back to therapy, and took up hobbies she didn't even remember she loved. The woman who used to live for a man was now learning to live for herself, and ironically, it was precisely during this process that she began to attract attention. Lots of attention. Men who used to not even notice her presence were now making a point of getting closer, but she was in a different place. For the first time in her life, she was no longer seeking validation from anyone. As her career took off, something unexpected happened. An old friend of Raphael's, someone who had always shown her respect and affection, reappeared. Gabriel. Unlike Raphael, Gabriel was kind, sincere, and saw Isadora for who she was, a strong, intelligent, and incredible woman. But her heart, still healing, was afraid, very afraid. Even so, Gabriel didn't give up. He approached her slowly, respecting every space, every silence, and every scar. Little by little, Isadora realized that perhaps not every man was the same. But she also understood that she didn't need a man to feel complete. Gabriel would be a bonus, not a savior, and that made all the difference. At the height of her transformation, life decided to put a scene worthy of a soap opera in front of her. At a company event, Isadora, now a project manager for a multinational company, came face to face with Raphael, and believe it or not, with the same woman who was the pivot of the betrayal. His look, which had previously been full of contempt, was now one of pure surprise and regret. The woman he had left, who he had said was too good, was now there, absolutely imposing, beautiful, and unapproachable. Raphael tried to hide it, but he couldn't help but get closer. "Isadora, it's been a while. You've been different." She just smiled. That smile of someone who no longer owes anything to the past. Not different, Raphael. I just went back to being who I always was. You just never noticed. The lover, now visibly uncomfortable, grabbed Raphael's arm, trying to drag him away. But he was transfixed. In his eyes, Isadora read everything she needed: regret, guilt, frustration. But curiously, it didn't hurt anymore. That woman who had once torn herself apart for him was now whole, and too whole to fit into the small life he could offer. After this encounter, something inside Isadora was consolidated once and for all. She no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. She did not need revenge, nor to hear an apology. Her existence, her transformation, was the greatest answer she could give to all those who doubted her, including herself. Gabriel was still there beside her, but without invading. He knew that the greatest love Isadora needed to cultivate was for herself, and she was doing it masterfully. Each achievement, each small step, each victory, everything was part of a rebirth process that now she understood would never end. After this encounter, something inside Isadora was consolidated once and for all. She no longer needed to prove anything to anyone. She did not need revenge, nor to hear an apology. Her existence, her transformation, was the greatest answer she could give to all those who doubted her, including herself. Gabriel was still there, beside her, but without invading. He knew that the greatest love Isadora needed to cultivate was for herself, and she was doing it masterfully. Each achievement, each small step, each victory, everything was part of a rebirth process that now she understood would never end. Months passed, and Isadora's life took a complete turn. She was promoted again, became a reference in her field, and most importantly, fell in love with the person who deserved it most: herself. Yes, she learned that self-love is not about being enough. It's about prioritizing yourself. Raphael, on the other hand, was drowning in regrets. The relationship that seemed perfect on social media didn't even last the first year. The betrayals that he once romanticized were now the reason for his own failure. And although he tried, he could never find in any woman what he wasted on Isadora, a partner, a whole woman. Isadora now saw all this from afar, not with resentment, not with a desire for revenge, but with the serenity of someone who understood that the past serves as a lesson, not a prison. She looked back only to remember how much she had grown, how much she had overcome. And so it was that one afternoon, walking along the beach, she realized that she was finally free. Free from emotional ties, from traumas, from other people's expectations. For the first time, she could breathe easily. For the first time, she knew who she really was. Isadora now saw all this from afar, not with resentment, not with a desire for revenge, but with the serenity of someone who understood that the past serves as a lesson, not a prison. She looked back only to remember how much she had grown, how much she had overcome. And so it was that one afternoon, walking along the beach, she realized that she was finally free. Free from emotional ties, from traumas, from other people's expectations. For the first time, she could breathe easily. For the first time, she knew who she really was. Isadora learned the cruelest way that not all love is shelter, but she also learned that the safest, strongest, and most transformative love is the one that is born within us. She was no longer that fragile, lost, and submissive woman. She was now a woman who, even marked by scars, carried the strength of someone who was able to rebuild herself from scratch. And if someone asks who Isadora is today, the answer is simple. She is living proof that the last tear is not a sign of the end. It is, in fact, the new beginning of someone who chose to never lose herself to anyone again.